But of course, down here in London, a row erupted between Nigel Farage and the Labour Minister Peter Kyle after the latter accused the Reform Party leader of being on the side of paedophiles like Jimmy Savile for opposing the online safety bill.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that this morning, but there you go, that's politics. Here is Mr Kyle defending his comments, doubling down on GB News.
Grossly offensive are the views of Nigel Farage, I'm afraid, in this regard. The Online Safety Act puts the onus on tech companies to prevent the grooming of children. The Online Safety Act puts the onus on tech companies to prevent under 13s from having access to social media, of course, which includes messaging services for which strange men can contact children. Now, Nigel Farage has said explicitly he wants to overturn that act. Now, words have consequences in politics, because if he gets into power, he will overturn that act and he will make it easier for predators and paedophiles to have access to children. There is no definitive grey area about this. Either you're on the side of predators and paedophiles, as Nigel Farage is, because he wants them to have more access to our children online, than you are with the Labour Party, where we are making sure we are holding the tech companies to account to prevent that kind of access, to keep children safer.
Well, in a broadcast for his own party, Nigel Farage said that this is an absolutely outrageous comment to have been made, indeed, below the belt.
Well, this is so absolutely disgusting that it's almost beyond belief. Just how low can a Labour government sink in its desperation? Yes, of course, they're in trouble. They're well behind us in the opinion polls. But frankly, to say that I would do anything that would in any way aid and abet people like Jimmy Savile is frankly it's so below the belt, it's almost not true.
All right, well, GB News political correspondent Katherine Foster is with us to try and explain all of this. A little bit odd from a cabinet minister to mention Jimmy Savile, well, accuse Nigel Farage of essentially being... Well, what did he say exactly? He said that he would have...
On the side
of Jimmy Savile.
And the paedophiles
Katherine, what's really happened here? Tell us.
Well, it's quite an extraordinary row. We've only just started recess, but we've got two big political beasts, Peter Kyle, the Science and Technology Secretary, and Nigel Farage, leader of Reform, absolutely furious with each other. We've heard Peter Kyle and Nigel Farage on X saying Peter Kyle's comments on Sky News are disgusting. He should do the right thing and apologise. Not only did he not apologise, but he has doubled down, as we heard him talking earlier on GB News. I think the reason this has all come to a head now is because the Online Safety Act was many, many years in the making, but a key part of it only came into effect on Friday, and as of Friday there is a legal duty on the tech companies to verify ID that people are over 18 if they're accessing something potentially harmful or adult only, such as pornography, suicide, self-harm websites, that sort of thing. Now, that happened on Friday. There are knock-on consequences, of course, adults being asked to prove their age to access certain content, and that was quickly then followed yesterday by Nigel Farage making an announcement saying, well, if Reform get into power, we will repeal this, because he says it risks free speech being, quote, erased at the stroke of a pen. He says that children will be pushed further into the dark corners of the internet. You know, we know that they can get round this through use of VPNs, and use of VPNs has surged in the most recent days. So this is very difficult, but fundamentally, the government has introduced this legislation because it is trying to protect children. Peter Kyle, that we see there on the screen, has said that the Wild West lasted on the internet for too long and it has ended on his watch.
If you're a US resident, let's face it, things feel uncertain right now. America's national debt, over $36 trillion and climbing. Inflation, still eating away at your savings. And the dollar, down nearly 8% this year, with more countries walking away from it. Meanwhile, the markets, one day they're up, the next day, trillions gone in a blink. So it's no surprise people are asking, where can I actually put my money and sleep at night? That's why more investors are turning to gold and silver. Gold's up over 24% this year, smashing records and soaring past $3,300 an ounce. And some analysts say we could see $6,000 gold before the end of Trump's term. And silver, it's heating up fast, driven by demand in tech, solar and defence. Some analysts say it could double in value this year. If you've been thinking about moving part of your IRA or 401k into gold or silver, tax and penalty free, our friends at Priority Gold make it simple. They're endorsed by Rich Dad's Robert Kiyosaki, ranked #1 by Forbes and Financial Services Review, and trusted by thousands of everyday Americans. Right now, GB News viewers can get a free wealth preservation guide from Priority Gold. It shows you exactly how to add real gold and silver to your IRA or 401k tax and penalty free. Step by step, plain English, no pressure, just smart information you can act on. Just scan the QR code, click the link in the description below, or if you're a US resident, text WEALTH to 24999. That's WEALTH to 24999 and claim your free guide today. The price of gold can go down as well as up. Past performance does not indicate future performance. Only invest what you can afford.
Because we try to protect children. You can't buy a drink often without ID. You can't buy cigarettes. You can't go and see certain things at the movie. But on the internet, it is so easy to get access to really harmful content. And children are vulnerable. Now, I interviewed Ian Russell, that's Molly Russell's father, about this when I worked in print some 5.5 years ago. Molly Russell was a 14-year-old girl, and her parents had literally no idea, but she had been accessing self-harm content and content promoting suicide online. One night, she watched I'm a Celebrity with them, went to bed as normal. The next morning, she was dead in her bedroom. He, with many others, have been campaigning for many, many years, saying that the tech companies are failing our children. Now there is a legal duty on the tech companies, but of course that throws up potential free speech issues.
Yeah, and a completely sympathetic case there, a real horrific thing to have happened to the Russell family. But the data doesn't show that child suicide is up. There are some really horrific individual cases that are in the press, but over the long run, I mean, child suicide was much higher 30 years ago. I mean, to base legislation off sort of one-off events that don't seem to represent a trend seems to be a curious position.
Well, I don't have the stats in front of me, Tom. What I do know is that mental health in children has gone up significantly. The figures I've got are told that 4 children end their lives online, end their lives in the UK every week. We don't know the reasons for that, but of course, children are exposed to social media and things online in a way that I wasn't when I was young. And, you know, we've got to be careful what we put out on this channel. Newspapers have got to be careful what they publish. Why shouldn't the tech companies have a responsibility for the content that's on their platforms?
And there's the debate. Katherine Foster, thank you very much indeed. Jimmy News political correspondent. Should we get the thoughts of political commentator Benedict Spence on this rather bizarre row between Peter Kyle, the Cabinet Minister, and Nigel Farage? Benedict.
I mean, just on that conversation there, as usual, I'm sort of left scratching my head, wanting to know what's so difficult about taking away phones from children.
Yeah.
Why is it that actually the default is we have to give them all of this technology in the world, and then it's up to somebody else to police what it is that they see? No, be a parent, be a grown-up, don't let them have the phone. On the subject of this particular debate, of this particular row, I think it is an example of political opportunism by Labour, and some might say that there's a cleverness to it. There's also a repulsiveness to it, which is that they have seen the visceral anger that is emerging in many parts of this country around sexual assaults on children and on women from what people perceive to be grooming gangs in some cases. There is also, as has been highlighted recently over the last couple of weeks, the safety of people in the vicinity of migrant hotels. This is something that is coming to the fore. Labour understands, A, that people feel viscerally, very strongly about sexual assaults, sexual attacks and sexual vulnerability. They also understand what it is doing to their own polling, that they are not being perceived as being tough on this. So rather than actually try to address any of this, they're just going to tar their political opponents with the same thing. They're going to say, oh, well, they're just as bad when it comes to sexual safety as we are. And actually, that this is what it's all about, is that you need to be careful about these people because they're going to lessen the safety of your children. Once again, take away the phones, take away access to the computers, and you deal with a large part of the problem. And I think it's particularly egregious, the example of Jimmy Savile saying, oh, well, Jimmy Savile would be doing this, that, and the other. Jimmy Savile did all of his abuse in broad daylight, in person. He was not grooming people on the internet. He was doing it, and it was known to authorities, including, dare I say, a couple of Labour MPs, why it is that you'd then take this particular example and then go, you have to be careful because Nigel Farage is potentially on the same side as Jimmy Savile. It is incredibly offensive to Jimmy Savile's own victims who were abused in person, not over the phone.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point.
Strong case. But Benedict Spence, thanks indeed for joining us and talking through the most extraordinary row that has broken out over the course of the last few hours.
Yeah, do get in touch. tvnews.com/your say. Interested to get your thoughts on all of this.